All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another OMARC Zoom presentation meeting. Tonight, we're going to be doing a presentation, more of a presentation and then conversation afterwards on analog transceiver programming with the free program online called Chirp. We're going to run through a quick presentation that'll give you the basics on it, and then we'll take questions and tips and tricks from the audience. And then we'll see how things go. All right, so with that, I'm going to start my screen share and we'll go through the presentation. All right, let me just double check. Screen share coming through. Just thumbs up, thumbs up. All right, good stuff. All right, so analog transceiver programming with the online program called Chirp. There we go. All right, so first off, before we get too deep into this, I'd like to say that Chirp is a online resource that's free, that's been curated and developed by a number of hams over the many years that it's been available. It's available, and I'll show you where you can get it in just a couple minutes. But if you do use the Chirp software and you do like it, I would suggest possibly throwing them a couple of bucks. They have a donate function on their web page, and they certainly deserve it. They've been working real hard on it over the years. So, and it's a fairly easily used program most of the time. There's some hiccups here and there, but it's pretty good. All right, so hardware that you need to do Chirp programming. You need a transceiver that is compatible with the Chirp software. On the website, there is a list of the transceivers that are compatible. If you have a transceiver, you can go ahead and look it up, see if it's there. It's fairly wide-reaching, the available transceivers that are compatible, so you should be able to find yours, but there might be a couple that are a little weird. Then you'll need a programming cable that's compatible with your transceiver. Generally, these programming cables are a USB to serial conversion cable. They have a chip in the USB end that converts from USB to serial protocol for the radios, because most radios are serial still. They come in a couple of different variations. Couple of different manufacturers. FTDI branded cables are usually the easiest to use with Windows computers. They generally just hook up and work. I believe FTDI is owned by Windows or Microsoft, so their drivers work fine. Prolific makes a chip called the PL2303, and the ones that some cables come actually with the genuine Prolific chip in it, and their drivers work well as well. But there's also usually fairly inexpensive cables out there for programming, and over the years, those cables have been installed with bootleg PL2303 chips. And the Prolific company has been building drivers that render them unusable. So if you have one of those cables, I will go over how to make them work, but it's definitely recommended that you either get a genuine PL2303 chip cable or an FTDI chip cable. You'll need a computer. Chirp is compatible with Linux, Windows, and also, I guess, most forms of Mac, although I've heard of a couple of glitches here and there. So you can download the proper program from their website for your operating system. And then here is the, okay, apparently my scroll wheel makes the thing go. You need to download the Chirp software, and that software is downloadable from the website's called chirp.danplanet.com. And this is the actual website for downloading the it's a URL for downloading. Actually, no, this is the home URL. So from there, you can find out all the information and then go to the download page and download your version of Chirp. Okay, let me just go ahead and do it this way. Scroll wheel's a little bit touchy. All right, so if by some reason you have an old PL 2303 bootleg somewhere that you bought by accident, or if you have if you pick one up because you didn't know, or you just sometimes the bootlegs sneak through and they say that they are genuine and they end up not being. So Prolific actively protects that intellectual property by creating Windows drivers that render the bootlegs inoperable. This is a big problem for most people. This trips a lot of people up when they're trying to program their radios. And we're going to go over how to overcome this problem, although Omar and myself, we definitely encourage you to buy the correct genuine chips before buying one of these cheap cables. So Windows, this is usually a Windows problem. This is not a Linux or Mac problem. Windows will update the driver almost every single time when you plug the cable into the system. Almost every single time it will override whatever's set up on it, and it will look for a new driver, and it'll render that chip inoperable due to the driver not being compatible. So as I said, next, Omar recommends that you buy that cable with a genuine chip or an FTDI chip, but sometimes bootleg chips just get through. So to use a bootleg chip, you need to roll back the driver to a very early version. And that early version is curated and available here at this website, www.miclor.com. And this is the actual URL for downloading the correct driver or the old driver. You can also just put in miclor.com and PL2303 and it will come up in Google. Once you download this driver, it comes in an install package and you install it on your computer. It will always be on your computer. That driver will always be available. Although Windows will update the driver from the driver that we want for these bootleg chips, you just have to go back and roll it back again. So every time Windows updates it, you have to go back. Let me go to the next slide. Okay, so here's the rollback procedure for Windows 10. It may be slightly different in Windows 7. I'm not sure about Windows 11. I've not used Windows 11 yet. So right now, I'm just going to say this is a Windows 10 specific, but the similarities on Windows 7 are there. So without the programming cables attached to the system, any one of the ones with the fake PL2303s in them, you want to download and install that file from Miclor to install the driver 3.2.0.0. That's a very early, I think it's from 2007 driver. Now, when you plug in your programming cable, Windows will automatically install the absolute latest driver, which will render the programming cable inoperative. So now you have to go in and roll it back. So the first step is to open your device manager. You can access that through I believe it's called This PC now in Windows 10. The old Windows 7 used to be called My Computer, and go to the COM ports. And we're going to show this graphically. All right, so this is my computer. When I took a screenshot last night. And if you look down here under COM ports, you'll see the regular always on port 1. And then this one says, this is not a Prolific PL2303. Please contact your supplier. So That's what it comes up with when you have the bootleg chip. So next, you right-click on that message and select Update Driver. This screen will come up, and you then click on Browse My Computer for Drivers right here. So that's on the bottom. And then it will bring up this next screen, and you click on the bottom here, which says, let me pick from a list of drivers on my computer. All right, and that will bring up the next screen. So if you look here, the next pop-up is select the driver you want to install for this hardware, and you'll see on the top here, it says Prolific USB to serial COM port version. Then you have the 3.2.0.0, and then all of the newer versions that have been installed since then. So you click on the 3.2.0.0, so it is highlighted, click on next, and then magically your old or your bootleg chip will magically become usable, and it will be assigned a COM port. As you can see down here, it now says Prolific USB to serial COM port, and it's been assigned COM6. So there you go. Then you can go ahead and check if you end up running into a problem later where Windows has updated the driver file. You can go in and double check and make sure that the driver version here, you double click on the COM port and check the driver, and it should say 3.2.0.0. If it says anything higher than that, then more likely Windows has updated again, and you need to go back and go through the process to roll back that driver to that very early driver. The newer drivers don't really offer all that much as far as additional functionality for those chips. Mostly it's just a way to keep these older chips from working. But since we have a workaround, we have a workaround. And once again, we recommend that you go buy the genuine chips or an FTDI chip, just because it's a lot easier. You don't have to go through this hassle. But if you got one of these hanging around, this is how you fix it. All right, so now that you've got the driver fixed and your cable is operational, let's start talking about doing some pre-work for setting up your radio frequencies that you want to put into your transceiver. So one of the things I always harp on is take a little time and organize what you want to put into your transceiver. Think about what frequencies you want to use. Think about repeaters that you want to put in there, and try to gather all that information together and start thinking about how you want to organize it in the radio. So as you click through the channels, it makes sense to you where things are. So gather a list of frequencies and repeater offsets and tones. Then one thing you want to do is go through and manually check and make sure these repeater information is valid. A lot of times things like repeater book and the ARRL repeater listing book are no longer up to date. They rely on reporting by the organizations that do the coordination, and they don't always update very often. So there may be a lot of repeaters that are listed that are possibly on a different PL tone, or maybe a different frequency, or maybe just don't exist anymore. So once you decide what you want, go check it, manually, and see if those are even valid, so that you don't put something into your radio that you're not going to use. Then you want to think about how you want to organize your entries. There's a couple of different ways to do that. You got to do it the way that makes sense to you. I like to organize mine by band. So 2 meter, 440. In the case tonight, we're going to be doing some 220 as well. But you might want to organize by location. Say you do a lot of driving and you want to have 2 meter, 440 repeaters available to you in different locations and grouped that way, which works pretty well. Or maybe you just want to have your simplex frequencies in one spot and your repeater frequencies in a different spot. And then some other things you might want to think about putting into your program are receive-only frequencies that are outside of the amateur bands, like weather channels, emergency service channels, if they're available to your, if your transceiver will cover those frequencies, business bands, the MURS, the FRS, and the GMRS bands. Those all can be put into a lot of these radios, and you can listen to them. So yeah, you can fix your program pretty easily. Just go back into Chirp and move things around. But a lot of times it's easier. I find it easy just to organize things first, and then get the program pretty much where I want it. That way I don't have to do a lot of changing. All right, so next. So now we're on to actual Chirp. So when you download and install the latest version of Chirp and open the program, this is what it looks like. It's pretty much totally blank. And the reason for that is Chirp is dependent on which radio that you are running. So it doesn't let you do anything until you first connect a radio and download whatever's in the radio from the factory into Chirp. So the next frame will show that. Oh, actually not. So first thing you have to do is download from your radio, and that's available under this radio tab here. And you will see this little pop-up shows up in which you have to correctly assign the right COM port, whatever your chip, your programming cable comes up as, which you can find in the device manager, at least in Windows. And then the other two things here are the manufacturer of your radio and then the model number. So once you get that all put in, you download from your radio and you get this. This is from a UV5R. This is a initial download. So what this does is when you download, it tells Chirp what radio it is, what basically version of the radio that it is, if there's a firmware update somewhere along the line. Same model of the radio may have different firmware updates. There may be changes over the years. So every time you get a new radio, you want to download from the radio first and get this initial image. And then the most important thing you can do, very, very important, is save this. Put it into a file. Usually what I do is I create a file for each radio that I have, and I save the initial program or the initial download, the initial image to that folder, and I name it something that says the word initial in it. So right now, this is up here on top here, it's saying Baofeng UV5R : and then I've actually already saved this file. I just brought it up so I can show you. 5R initial is the name of this for me, .image. And that is very important. You want to hang on to this at all costs. This is your backup. If you ever screw up your radio, you can always go back, drop this in, and bring it back to factory specifications. You can also do a reset on the radio, but sometimes that doesn't work as well as just dropping in the initial program. All right, so once you've got that figured out and you've got that saved, you can start putting in your frequencies. And you'll see here, I've got some of these programmed in. You can't see everything because there wasn't enough room, but these are some of the 2-meter frequencies I have put in here. Most of these are repeater frequencies. I've got the 805 here from Omark, the 255, the 745. There's an N2 LEN frequency. One of the beacons is the 97 machine, this is the 045 machine. And you'll see that each one has a bunch of different things as you go across. So you have your initial frequency goes in here. You can name the frequency that you're going to use. The channel name is here. Then you have, this is the tone, whether or not you have a repeater tone or an input tone, or if you have a tone squelch, or if you have both. And then your tone goes in here, tone squelch, DTCS code if you're in that position, but we don't usually use those much. And then as you go along, you'll see the other things that you need to know, like duplex. This is the direction of the offset. And then you can see just on the side here what the offset amount is. And then there's more frequency, more inputs as you go along, but I'll get to them later when we actually do a live version. Another thing to make sure you look at, if you look over here, well, let me go back one and see if I can go back. Okay, so right now we're under this tab here that says memories. So these are your memory positions and the frequencies and channels that you're going to be building. Underneath, there's a settings tab. So you want to check on that. Get into the settings. There's a lot of different stuff you can do with the radio that are available to you in the Chirp programming software. So go through these settings, take a look at them, see how you want to set them up. Just want to make people aware that there is this other tab here, and there are things you can do with the radio that you may not know to look for if you're just putting in your memories, your channels. On this screen right here under basic settings, there's a bunch of things that I'll just show you real quick. You got your squelch level. This is this stock squelch level that the radio will automatically set to. Backlight timeout, it's right here. The enabled Roger beep, which is no longer enabled. Timeout timer can be done here. This is for the UV5R, so it has different colors when different things are happening. Actually, no, I'm sorry. This beep up here is the beep when you push a button or twist the knob to change menus. That's that beep. This is the Roger beep down here, but I have them both disabled. All right, so once you get that all set up and you go through all of those processes, get your program the way you like it, you want to go ahead and write it to the radio. So first thing you want to do is you want to save the program, and you'll come up here under File. And what you want to do is you want to save it under a different name. So you hit File and then come down to Save As, and then you want to put in a new name for the new image. So that way you don't save over your initial image. And you'll see this one here. I've actually got two images up at the same time, which is an interesting feature we'll go over later. This one says UV5R loaner. And this is an image that I've created for radios that I loan out to people who are new hams. It's got a bunch of frequencies in there that are good for, playing around and figuring out what you want to do with ham radio, at least on the 2-meter 440 side. So once you've got it saved, you want to write it to your radio. You come under your radio tab here, select Write to Radio, and then this dialog, which looks just like the read dialog, pops up. Make sure your COM port's right. The vendor and the model number will be automatically deselected because you've already downloaded this radio and it knows what radio it is. You hit OK, and it will start writing to the radio. And that's basically it. That's how you use Chirp software in the most basic sense. So I'm going to go ahead and unshare at this point, and we'll take some questions, see if anybody has any thoughts or questions or anything they'd like to go over. So let me stop the share, bring you all back up. All right, I know a lot of you folks have worked with Chirp in the past, but there are some newer hams out there. Anybody have any questions or thoughts? Anybody who didn't understand? Oh, I see Larry's got his hand up. Go ahead, Larry.
I have a Baofeng cable, and it says 2303 chip on it.
Yep.
Is that okay?
You won't know until you plug it into the computer. So I will go through how that works in real time in just a couple of minutes. So I'll show you what happens when you plug one in and it doesn't come up properly. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? All right. Doesn't look like there's any other questions. So why don't we go through that process? We're going to actually program a radio here real quick because I've got my I've got a new radio here that I need to program. So let's go through the process, and then after we go through the process of actually programming a radio, we will see if anybody has any interesting tips or tricks of stuff that I didn't know. I always love to learn from people, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to first things first here. Let's go ahead and start with installing the prolific programming cable. So let me bring up this, and I'll share it out so we can see what happens in real time. All right, so let me share the screen. This one? I think this is the right one. All right. I think that will show you the full screen of my computer management. Is that correct? Yeah, anybody seeing it? Thumbs up? Okay, good, thank you. All right, so you bring up this computer and hit manage. Actually, you know what? Let me go ahead. Let's go ahead and go through that whole process. Let me unshare and I'll do the whole thing. We'll go through and do the whole thing from the beginning. And hopefully it will follow through. So share screen. You know what? I'm just going to share my, let's make sure there's nothing on here that's sensitive. No, okay. We'll go ahead and share this full screen. Okay. So now you're seeing one of my desktops. All right, so you bring up this PC, at least in Windows 10. You can find that through the search function on the bottom here. Just go in, type this, and usually this PC pops right up on the top here. See it right there. And that will, hold on, that will give you this view here. And then up on top, there is a bunch of stuff you can do here. And what you're after is this tab right here, which is manage. And that'll bring up your device manager. It's a little bigger, so it's less confusing. Or computer management anyways. And then you want to come back down here on the side, here on the left side to device manager. And that will show you everything that's attached to your computer, all your bits and pieces. So I'm going to plug in the fake prolific cable that I've had for many years. Come on. And you'll see it did an update there. And then if you come down here to your COM ports, COM and LPT, and expand that, you'll see that this chip is not a prolific PL2303. So it's definitely a fake chip. I know it's a fake chip. I've had it for years and I know how to fix it. But like I said, we recommend you go find the correct chip. So when it's a fake chip, it'll come up with this. You right click on this and hit update driver. This is assuming you've downloaded the McLaurin 3.2.0.0 driver already and installed it. All right, browse my computer for drivers. Let me pick from a list of available drivers. You'll see the prolific USB to serial COM port 3.2.0.0 from 2007. Highlight that, hit next. Windows updates the driver to that driver. Close out the screen. And you'll see the computer management, the device manager has updated. And now my prolific cable, which is fake, works. It says it's on COM port 6. All right, so let me stop there, see if anybody has any questions with that or needs me to go over that one more time. Everybody good with that? Larry, you got your hand up, Ed. Go ahead.
Once, do you have to do that for every radio, or does it change the Chirp program permanently?
Okay, so that's a loaded question. Depending on the bootleg manufacturer of the PL2303 chip, if you get that same chip in a bunch of different cables, then sometimes the computer, at least the computer management, will recognize that chip as the same chip on each different cable, and will automatically give you the correct port or the correct driver that you want. But it's very easy to go in through your device manager and just double check on it, make sure. As long as it shows up and it gives you a COM port on it, then it's going to be working. But if it doesn't, then you have to go in and roll back the driver. Okay, so sometimes it just works, sometimes it doesn't. There's no absolutes on this one, unfortunately.
Thank you.
All right, good enough. I don't think I have another PL2303 here that's bootleg right now. Otherwise, I would plug one in and see if it did work or not. But I don't have one handy. All right, so once you've got that fixed, now we'll go over to the Chirp program again. And I'm going to do this and bring this up big here so we're not showing off everything on my desktop. So the first thing you want to do is you want to download from your radio. So there it is. Download is set up. I'm going to plug in my little red radio and turn it on. Some transceivers require that you push buttons while you turn them on to put them in communications mode. Definitely read your manual so that you know exactly what the procedure is there. With the UV5 series, generally it just plug it in and it works. Don't have to go through any special button pressing. Question, Dave. Go ahead there, Bob. Your vendor shows radio oddity. That's not Baofeng. I know. This particular radio happens to be not supported in Chirp under Baofeng. It's supported under Radio Oddity. It's the same radio. This is a tri-band radio, which has 220 in it. So this is just how you have to make this particular radio work. Most of the time, it's straightforward. This one happens to be a weird one. So that's a little bit of a curveball there that probably wasn't great for the presentation, but it is what it is. I'm watching you. I know, you're keeping an eye on me. All right, so my radio is hooked up, it's turned on, and we've got the COM port correct here. COM6, radio oddity for this particular radio is correct. UV5R X3 is the version that works for this radio, even though it is a UV9S. And we'll download it. So if everything is operating, you should see this green bar going across. And it'll say cloning, and the green bar is going across. That means that the radio is communicating with the computer. And you'll see we've got our initial download from the radio pops right up into Chirp. So once you've got that, first thing you want to do is you want to immediately go and save this file. And I do suggest doing this for absolutely every radio that you attach and use Chirp from, even if you have two UV5Rs or two UV5RX3s like this one. Always good to have one for each, because the internal firmware oftentimes changes. So we're going to go in here. We're going to hit Save As. And let me bring this over here because this popped up on a different screen. So, right. You got to decide where you want to stick it. I like putting these on my desktop here. Actually, we won't put it there. We'll put it in my documents because there's a curse word on there. Okay. So usually what comes up is radio audit. It comes up with the radio name, or the radio manufacturer, the name of the radio, and then the date. So I like to change it out to something that reminds me. If you're following along, everybody can see this, right? No problems. Okay, good enough. So I had to go admit Neil. So this is a Baofeng UV 9S and initial. So that's the first thing I do is I grab a hold of that and I save that file. Just because I want it somewhere where I can always get it. If I ever have to go back to stock, we go in through that. All right, so I've already built a program for this particular radio. So we're going to just go ahead and open it up, and I will go through the screen, the cells here, so you can see what I've got in there, and we'll go from there. But I'm just going to open a file. So say you're programming a lot of the same radio. Maybe you're programming a bunch of UV5Rs to give away for a club meeting, or you're building radios for some other purpose, and you're going to be programming a lot of them. What you can do is you can create a image file and then have it saved and just open it up later on and blow it onto the radios. So you come up to File, use the open utility here, and then you have to go find where you saved it. And in my case, it's under radio stuff, Chirp, radio. No, not in this case. That's not the right one. Radio programming files is not correct. It's under UV9S. And you'll see I already have the initial one here that I saved earlier, but I will put this one in because this radio is a little bit later. And then I have my my program that I've created for it here. It's UV9SJLV. So we'll open that up. And you'll notice that the initial file stays in where it is, and then your other image file pops up here in a second tab. So what you can do is you can switch back and forth between the two different files. Now this comes in handy if you want to say transfer the same frequencies from two different types of radios. You can open up both files and then grab all the frequencies and whatnot from one file and drop them into the other radio program. This comes in real handy if you say have a number of different Baofengs or a number of different radios, and you want them all to have the same frequencies programmed in. So that's something that can be done. In fact, I took most of these frequencies from a old UV5R file that I had, and I added in the 220 file, 220 frequencies. So let's just show you what I've got going on here. I've got the way I've blocked in my frequencies and the way the radio will present them as I go through the channels. I have all of my 2 meters blocked in from most used to least used, and then as far as repeaters go. And then I dropped in a few simplex frequencies here as well. And you'll see that you've got, for say a repeater, you have your initial frequency here. I put in the name, the tone. Let's see if I can open the cell up here. There you go. So this one just has an encode tone or a repeater tone, but you can change what it does. You can put in a tone squelch so that it only will receive under the condition of having the tone coming back at the radio. DTCS, which we don't use really much, and then there's the cross version there, which basically does encode and decode. And then your tone here, that comes up as a list. You'd hit the drop down, and then let me expand this a little bit if it'll let me. It's probably not going to let me. So all the different tones that are available, they come up here. You pick the right one, and it will input it there. Then tone squelch, if you're doing a receive tone, same thing. It will come up with the list of different CTCSS tones that you can use. We won't go through DCTS, but it's the same situation. Then the duplex here is your repeater offset direction. So you have negative, positive, split, which I've never used before, and off. There's also none. So I don't know what these three are. These two are. Never used those, but in this case for the 805, it's a negative offset. Then you have the amount of the offset here. You put that in your mode. Everything we're going to do here is FM anyways. And then you can actually put in different power levels for different frequencies or different channels. So say you are always really close to the repeater, you don't need high power. You can set it up so it does it on low power for that particular frequency.
Dave,
Joe, you have a question?
Yeah. Years ago, the FM defaulted to a wideband FM, and I had to change that to narrowband FM. The later versions of Chirp, does that default directly to narrowband FM?
It's a good question. That will come up when we go into, let's see, I believe that's in the settings. For this particular radio, it's a radio wide setting, I believe, but I could be wrong on that. So let's go ahead and see here. I think that's all the cells that we can do. So I don't know that you can change that per channel, but maybe.
You used to be able to change it individually, yes.
There may be a way to do that, but that may be something I don't know how to do, and maybe somebody can tell us how to do that.
Click on the FM and it gives you the choice of.
Yep, there it is. Yep.
Yeah.
You got it right. Narrow FM. Yep. So yeah, you can change
there. Yeah.
You can-
You've used it with the wideband FM and it does not splatter on the repeater?
No, it seems to work just fine. The repeater's set up for the full width, so it seems to work just fine.
Okay.
Narrow does work, but it just sounds kind of tinny. So
Can I add a comment on that real quick?
yeah, go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, narrow, is whoever is asking, is the new commercial narrow standard. Ham radio is still wide. We don't use the narrow setting, and it comes across as being low volume and hard to hear. Wide is fine.
Thank you.
Okay, good enough. All right, so if we look through my frequencies here, you can see all my VHF repeater frequencies, my VHF simplex. I also have the 220 repeaters that I have located that I think mostly work, although I haven't had a chance to go really test them too much. Then I also have the national calling frequency on 220 and a simplex frequency that I just programmed in. And then 440. These are the 440 repeaters that I think I might use. And then I've also dropped in all of the weather channels because I think, that's kind of handy to have, even if you're, moving around throughout the state or throughout the country. Having all 10 of these available to you can be very convenient. So that's my program. It's pretty simple. Just the radio frequencies that I'm going to use. You can drop in tons of them, but that's what I use. And then if you go down here to the settings tab, we'll go through and you can take a look at what I've got set. Squelch level, timeout timer. Actually, I'm going to up that a little bit because I like my backlight timeout to be a little bit longer. I've put in 120 seconds for 2 minutes on the timeout timer, display mode, colors, et cetera, et cetera. That's your basic settings for this radio. Advanced settings, a bunch of stuff in here. Most of it I don't personally use, except for the broadcast FM radio, the ability to use that. There are other features in here that you may want to use. Other settings here. This one of the things that you can put into these radio is a message that flashes on the screen when you turn it on. I have K2JLV rocks just because I don't know, I'm crazy. You you can change your frequency limits on this radio. Goes from 136 to 174 megahertz, but you can change that. And then on UHF 400 to 520, doesn't appear to have any settings specifically for the 220 megahertz, but that's not surprising. Work mode settings, there's a few things in here you might want to play with. VFO-A frequency and VFO-B frequency. These on this particular radio are when you hit the VFO button, this is the default frequency that comes up. And then you can program in whatever you need after that. I've got them set to the call frequencies right now. Default VFO power, default VFO bandwidth, right down here. Tuning steps, 2.5 megahertz or kilohertz is what I have set because I like that granularity. FM radio preset. You can tune the radio, but tune in something that you like to listen to. I just put in the local rock and roll station here, WPDH. DTMF settings, probably not going to want to deal with these. There might be a use for them somewhere, but most average users won't use that too much. And this, you can actually adjust your squelch settings here. I know some of the Baofeng settings are a little bit, they don't offer a great amount of, the stock settings are not extremely usable, but I have never messed with that personally. Frank, do you have a question? Go ahead. You're still muted, Frank.
There we go. Go back to the main screen. Question I had is on your first couple of memories that you put in.
Okay.
Now I saw where you have the 805 repeater.
Yeah.
Why do you have the 805 in and the 805 out as numbers 1 and 2?
Okay. So most people are familiar with using the reverse button on the radio to listen for somebody on the input. So if you're listening for somebody and you want to listen on the input, see if they're close to where you are, you can hit a reverse button, but I program in a separate channel. I just throw in the input frequency, I put in a name, and then I don't put any information beyond that. It doesn't require any of that. So this allows me to listen on the input with just a click of the channel selector. The 805 output, not something you use very much, but I have it in my program as occasionally, say you're listening to something on the 805 and you just want to shoot a message over to somebody without going through the repeater real quick. They're listening to the 805 on their radio, but you don't want to go through the repeater because you don't want to put it out over the entire area. This comes in handy in certain situations. So I can talk to somebody who has, send a quick message to somebody who has the 805 dialed up on their radio without going through the repeater with this, assuming they don't have the tone squelch engaged. So, will I ever use it? I don't know, but threw it in there. But it could be handy. All right, so anybody else have any questions about, how I've set mine up, or if they have any questions about the settings or anything like that, please go ahead.
Hey, Dave, one thing I was going to mention in the past, if the repeater had gone down, people use the 805 direct to tell people, because obviously they're not listening on the input. So you could tell them, sometimes talk to people that way. If for some reason the repeater was down, and let them know there's maintenance or whatever. So it's pretty common practice.
All right, very good. That's a great use for it. I had not thought of that, but that's cool. All right, so there you go. Practical reason to have it there, and it's nice to have it on its own channel, so you can quickly click over to it without having to go through menus and push buttons. Okay, so now that we've gone over my program here for this particular radio, we're going to go ahead and program the radio. This is already a saved image. My suggestion, of course, is to go through File, Save As, create a new name for it, and save it to the same file folder that you keep your initial program in. I also tend to keep my progressive files as I go along. So say I make a different change to this image, what I will do is I will go into the next version of it, and I will rename the newer version JLV 1, and then JLV 2, and then JLV 3, just so I can if I ever want to, I can go back to one of the old images, or at least see where I came from and where I was going to. So finally, we're going to program the radio. So pick this up here under radio, upload to radio. It'll come up with the COM port that you want. And like I said, these are blacked out or grayed out because you can't change them now that you're into the programming process here. And we'll hit OK. And assuming everything is working, it should have this green bar, and it should go right across. And once that is all finished, then your radio is programmed, and that's pretty much it. Like I said, there's a lot of other things you can do. This program is very flexible, and it allows for a lot of different usages. It comes in very handy. All right, anybody with any questions where we are now? I'll leave this up for a minute or two. Just see if anybody. Charles, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah. Well, you said you could use an image from one radio and copy it into another by putting the two of them up there at the same time and switching between them.
Yeah.
Do you like cut and paste, or how do you move it over?
Okay, let's go ahead and do it, shall we? All right, let me kill this image here. Nope, we're not going to save the file. All right, so we're going to continue with the share here. Let's open two images. So let's open the image I just downloaded from the last from this radio. So this is the image we just downloaded.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's open another one here. We'll open, yeah, I have to go through all this. Sure, nope, that's not what we wanted. That was the thing. Yes, okay. So let's open up that loaner file I had before. So open that up. All right, so you've got all the stuff that's in here from the last one. Basically, you can't copy everything from one radio to another, but you can copy the frequencies, the channels you can copy.
Mm-hmm.
Most of that will be copyable. Anything in the settings, you want to go through each individual radio and change those per radio. So this is my source. So what we'll do is, I think, let me see if I can remember how to do this. So I'm going to click on this one, and I'm going to hold down the control button.
Right.
And we'll select all of the channels. And I'm going to select the space channels as well, so that I can keep them organized in the same way, and the spaces will show up. Yeah, and I screwed it up. I don't think you can, yeah, you can't do the drag and select.
You can click one, hold down the shift key, and then click further down.
Okay. All
Also,
right.
you'll see me trying to get in again. I just want to switch over to a more capable computer.
Understood. All right, I'll let you in when you get there, Neil. Interesting. So you can hold down. I'll have to try that. Okay, I'm going to do it the way I know how to do it. All right. So then right-click hit the copy. And then let's go back over to the other one here. We'll click on the first top frequency here. Actually, first thing we'll do is we'll, let me get Neil back in here real quick. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all of these channels that are in here. So cut, not working. Oh, delete, right.
Recording in progress.
Oh boy. Okay, so this is going to take a while. So we'll just ignore this for a minute. So let me go up here and we'll just hit the paste button. Hopefully that'll work. And it's not working. Copy. Okay, so there we go. All right, so didn't do quite everything perfectly, but it got a lot of them in there. So the frequencies here that there was nothing to write over, it maintained these frequencies from the first initial program there. So just go in here and cut, or excellent, delete that one. Come on. All right, right. So these are leftovers from the initial image there, because there wasn't anything to write over it. It didn't write over it. So basically it's cut and paste, select. You can go through and just select each one individually, move it around on your new program wherever you want. And you'll notice that when I hit the delete button, it offered to shift the block up or shift all the memories up. So you can do that. You can move, if you delete one memory and hit this, it'll shift the block up. Or if you select this and it'll shift all the memories up, you'll see there's one missing now. So we'll just insert, and then I'll put mine back in there. So that's basically it. And then usually everything comes through pretty well, but I do suggest you go back through and double check all the frequencies, make sure everything that you cut and copied came through properly. But it definitely will save you a whole lot of time. All right, Charles? Okay, I got a nod. Anybody else with any tips?
I got a couple.
Okay, go ahead. You want
There
me
is
to, would you like me to unshare if you want to bring it up for yourself, or no?
let me see if I have it on here.
Or if not, I will use the share we've got going here, and I will try to do it per your instruction.
Looks like I have an older version here. Okay. Let's see. All right, I have like a generic open. Okay, I should be sharing.
Yep, you're on.
All right. Everybody like my background?
No, we can't see it anymore because you're sharing.
Anyway, all right. Yeah, the thing I was talking about was just if you hit one, then hold down the shift key and then hit another one. And this works pretty much with any list of text or in a spreadsheet. It allows you, so if I hit here, hold down the shift key and then hit on 18, it's always going to highlight everything between. You can even combo that with the control. I'm on a Mac, sorry. On a Mac, it's not the control, it's the command key. Yes. And then I can go down here and hit shift and get combinations on that. So you see I hit the shift to get the bottom three, and I'm using the control, or on a Mac, the command key to get the top three. So that's one way. Another thing you can do, so I'm dealing with a stock config here, not something I imported from a radio. And I apologize, folks, I got off the bus pretty late tonight. But you can save this configuration as a regular CSV file, which is just a comma delimited like spreadsheet file. That gives you a generic, basically like code plug, that if you had more than one brand or kind of radio, that you can kind of load between different kinds of radios and somewhat match your configuration between a Baofeng, a Yaesu, an ICOM, etc. It gets a little complicated because there can be different parameters sometimes between those radios, but the basic information will load. And it's a way to get some of the radios on common channels and common things. So that's another thing that's kind of cool. So it's a non-specific save, not for a certain radio. And I wanted to show importing real quick from online services. I don't know if you did that, because I wasn't here from the beginning.
No, I did not do that one.
Right, so this is, let me get out of this dialogue real quick. Okay, if I wanted to draw channels in here from a service, you can do imports or queries, and they're in this radio menu. If you do import, it's going to put the data you select right into your code plug or configuration. If you do query, you're going to get a pop-up window showing the things you ask for. You can see there's sources on here. DMR mark repeaters is kind of silly for our purposes because there's very few, DMR radios that Chirp will actually work with. So we'll skip that. But there's a few other choices here that do work. Repeater book is the one that you don't need a subscription for. And we can go here and do a repeater book political query. And then we click OK. We're going to say, let's import New York, everything in Dutchess County on 70 centimeters or 440. Click OK.
Neil,
And I'm going to get
that one didn't show up. Yeah, it stayed on your code plug there.
I'm sorry.
The other thing didn't pop up.
Let me hold on. I'm going to stop my share and reshare. I know why. Okay. I'll repeat this real quick. So radio, query, repeater book, political. We did New York, Dutchess County, and 70 centimeters. You can see it this time, I assume?
Yep.
Okay. And then click OK, and it's going to load this information on a new tab right here. And there is every 440 repeater that repeater book has listed in Dutchess County. And then you can, doing the same thing here, copy and paste. So you can get repeaters that way. The other choice you saw on that menu, query, repeater book, proximity. This we could say from my location, 12528, distance 50 miles, every 70 centimeter or 440. I can also do all bands, but that's kind of overkill. Hit OK, and another tab's going to show up here. And now here's every 440 repeater in a 50-mile radius from me. And you can pick and choose here. You don't have to do all of them. So I could just go through here and pick the ones I want. I prefer to use the query and not the import. Just my own preference. I found the import, because the data has to fit exactly where you choose to put it. So that's import and query from data source. And then you have a couple other choices here that I'll point out. If you have an RFinder account, you can use that with your username and password. You can see email and password here come up, but you've got to look up longitude and latitude. So it's a little more of a pain in the neck, but our finder sometimes is a little more accurate because it's a paid service. They can afford to be more accurate. And the other one in here, if you have a radio with a lot of channels, which some of them, you know, if you're loading something like a Kenwood THFH6 or something like that, I have a radio reference account, which is one of the scanner frequency services. Same thing, username and password, but if you have an account for radio reference, you can use Chirp to load scanner frequencies and some repeater frequencies on your radio. But it's not that great for repeaters. It's mostly for municipal style stuff, fire, police, etc. The only other things in this list that are really handy are the import from stock config, which is how I started this generic list. Was I did FRS and GMRS, but there's business radio, light frequencies, California Railroad channels. There's your NOAA weather radio channels, MERS, Marine VHF. So there's some useful stuff in here. Like if I did Marine VHF, there, and I can choose which ones I want and just drop them in. So that's a couple of little handy tools I've learned with it over the years. The only other things that I won't bore everybody with are cross-platform stuff. There's really nothing you need to know about using it on the Mac. In fact, using Chirp on the Mac eliminates some of the driver issues that we have in Windows. It seems to be more forgiving of the drivers. Using it in Linux can be a little tricky. Even installing it these days, because of the Flatpak install, doesn't work on all the OSs. And then in some Linux distributions, and those of you who are Linux people know what I'm talking about, you have to add your account, your user account, to the dial-out group because it's going to see your radio as a modem. And if you're not in the dial-out group, it won't let you connect to the radio. Most of the newer distros seem to fix that, but once again, you Linux people know what I'm talking about. If anybody wants help getting this up and running on Linux, I've done it a couple of times. So, but that's my take on Chirp. Oh, one more quick warning. If you are hooking it up to something like a THFH6 from Kenwood or a couple of the ICOM base radios, it loads in what's called live mode, which means you're actually editing the code plug on the radio live as you're looking at it. It's a little weird and it makes it a little sluggish, but at least you can back up the radio and reload it if you do have a disaster or want to change things. But it's a little strange on some of those radios. So if you get that pop-up warning that says you are working in live mode, that's what that means. It's a little weird, but it works. And that's it.
All right, very good, Neil. Thank you very much for that. I figured you'd have a couple of tips and tricks. Anybody else with any tips or tricks about Chirp? Certainly not a ninja myself, so I'm happy to take some tips myself. Go ahead, Larry, with your question.
I've been using the RI system. Have people used that before as well?
Which system is that?
RI. Everything is automatic. You pay about $25 for each radio, and then they send you the disc, and you load it. And
RT systems.
RI, I think it is.
Maybe, could be. Those we didn't cover those tonight because they're radio.
I'm sorry, RT. You're correct.
They're radio specific. You have to buy one for each radio.
Yes.
But a lot of the information will translate when you get into the RT systems. They definitely have really drilled down on each one of those radio programming softwares that you purchase from them. And they're a lot more robust as far as how many features they can do on each radio, but Chirp actually still covers quite a bit. But yes, they are a very good alternative as well. Really all comes down to how many different radios do you have, and how much do you want to spend for programming?
It gets a little expensive, but with the RT system, everything's automatic. After you put the frequency in, everything comes out.
All right, very cool. I know a number of people use the RT systems. I've used it for, I have a VX8R Yaesu that works really well for that. And I found that Chirp didn't really play well with it, at least the older versions. I haven't tried lately. All right, very cool, Larry. Yeah, that's definitely another alternative. Anybody else with any other tips or tricks before we close this out? Or questions? No? All right, well, that's basically it then. That's the basic ins and outs and a few tips and tricks on how to use Chirp to program your analog transceiver. This doesn't just work for, as Neil alluded to, it doesn't just work for handy talkies, it also works for base station type radios or mobile radios. So definitely a nice, robust system that's pretty universal and definitely well curated. They are updating it all the time. So definitely download the most recent version if you're going to install it.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
All right, very good, Larry. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, good night,
Thank
Joe.
you very much.
Thanks for doing this.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, Mose. All right, stopping the recording.